Well, shalom everybody and Hag Sameach. Welcome back to the channel. We are continuing our series looking at Lashon Hara, and we are going through the book Guard Your Tongue by Rabbi Zelig Pliskin, based off the works of the Chofetz Chayim, which is a Jewish sage that lived up to the 20th century. He's a fairly recent Jewish sage, Rabbi Yisrael Meir Kagan, who spent a lot of his life looking at the Torah and looking at the Torah as it relates to correct speech, and so that is called Hilkot Shimurat Lashon, which is the laws of correct speech, which ultimately is our destination. And so far we are going through the Prohibitions. We are going to conclude the Prohibitions today, which is verses found in the Torah that relate to Lashon Hara that are observed through refraining from actually doing something. That is, by not doing something, you are observing the correct way of speaking. And so we are up to number 15, which is from the book of Exodus, Shemot 22:21. Any widow or orphan shall you not afflict. And the commentary to this reads, if you speak Lashon Hara about widows or orphans in their presence, no matter what their social or financial position, you violate this prohibition. And if we look at Deuteronomy 10:18, we see that Hashem has a particular sensitivity toward the widow or the orphan, meaning that if we, hashva shalom, heaven forbid, should cause somebody who is deemed a widow or an orphan to be afflicted in some way, and they go somewhere and pray with tears and kavanah to Hashem, and for some sort of reprieve or relief of the affliction that we may have caused them, then we find ourselves in a very, very dire situation, because not only have we committed an act of Lashon Hara, but we have compounded the felony by committing an act of Lashon Hara that is directly against a widow or an orphan. And many times we can have ongoing relationships with people and interactions with them, and for quite a while we may not actually be aware that the person is a widow or an orphan, or both. And so we have to be doubly sure that if they were to do something to cause us in some way to be upset or be annoyed, that we don't go and slander them in any way. Okay, number 16, you shall not pollute the land wherein you are, according to Bamidbar 35:33. This verse forbids us to flatter a wrongdoer. Now, okay, so the first part of that commentary, let's just stop there for a second, because if you look at the verse, you shall not pollute the land wherein you are, it is essentially saying you shall not do things that cause the land to become corrupted. And it's an interesting verse, because if you take it in a literal sense, you can be misled into thinking that it could be talking about actually, doing something that could physically cause the land to have negative effects on it. But this isn't the case. This is actually talking about actually residing in the land, that is in the Holy Land of Israel, and actually committing an act of Lashon Hara by way of flattering somebody who is a wrongdoer. Now, there is a story where King Herod would, like all other kings of Israel, would have to once a year come out and read from the Torah scroll. And the children of Israel would all be present as he was reading from the scroll. And he came to a part in the Torah that spoke of a foreigner. You shall never put a foreigner as a king over you. And it was widely whispered that King Herod wasn't actually Jewish. He wasn't actually, his father was a convert, and his actual eligibility to be considered as a full member of the nation was called into question. So when he would come across this line in the Torah scroll, the children of Israel, his subjects who were there listening to the public reading, they would cry out to him, sometimes with tears, and tell him not to be upset by that verse. And sometimes, I think if memory serves me correctly, when he actually read that verse, he read it with tears himself. And so what the nation of Israel did was they were actually making him feel okay about something that he was doing, which was being the king of Israel, which went against the Torah. And so he was considered a wicked person, and his subjects were kind of trying to make him feel better as he read from that verse every year. And so what that contributed to was the nation of Israel going into Gullus, going into exile, so they were then swiftly removed from the land. So we have an example here. If you know that Reuben dislikes someone, the correct thing to do is to admonish Reuben for his hatred. By speaking Lashon Hara to Reuben about his enemy in order to find favor in his eyes, you violate this prohibition. A listener of Lashon Hara can also be guilty of this prohibition. It is very common for people to nod their heads or vocally show approval when someone tells them Lashon Hara. This flattery is termed kinifut and is a serious offense, and you could read more about that in Sha'arei Tshuva, chapter 3, verses 187 through 199. Now, when you are speaking Lashon Hara about somebody, if you are doing it with the motive to find favor in the eyes of the subject you're speaking the Lashon Hara to, again, this is doubling the transgression. This and the motive behind you speaking Lashon Hara to them is giving you some sort of is fulfilling some sort of additional agenda for you. And some people might say, well, I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything bad. When the person was telling me something about this other person that I don't particularly have a problem with, all I did was just simply nod my head slowly a couple of times. Or all I did was say, yes, I'm listening. Oh, yes, yes. And I didn't do anything wrong. Well, that's not true. By simply just nodding the head or just assuring the person that they still have your attention, this is engaging in Lashon Hara with this person as well. Number 17, you shall not curse the deaf, according to Vayikra 19:14, that's Leviticus. This verse forbids us to curse others with Elohim's name. It applies even to a deaf person. All the more so, we're forbidden to curse someone who is able to hear. And that you can read more about that in Lashon Mishpat 27. If you speak Lashon Hara about someone in anger, you are apt to curse him. Okay, so in Vayikra 19:14, it's telling us that we shouldn't curse a deaf person. So even though a person may not be able to hear what we're saying, the words that we're saying behind that person's back, even if we were in front of them, they couldn't hear us, they are going to affect other people as well. So somebody who's deaf, people normally have some sort of sympathy towards that person. But if they can hear somebody cursing somebody who's deaf, they're going to think, wow, that person must be pretty bad, considering the fact they're already afflicted with being deaf, and this other person over here is cursing them. And so what happens is they may then change their way they're interacting with this deaf person. So if this deaf person relies on charity, and this charity ceases because somebody has placed a curse on them that has been heard by people and the word has gotten around, this could cause additional affliction to this deaf person. And it says here, this verse forbids us to curse others in Elohim's name. We're forbidden to curse, period, but it's widely believed that if somebody curses in Hashem's name, heaven forbid, then that's a serious curse. That's a very, very serious curse. If somebody uses the name of Hashem to curse somebody, and we know according to the Ten Commandments that we should be very wary about using Hashem's name in vain. And in this case, using Hashem's name to cause us to transgress. So we have finished the laws of the negative commandments, the prohibitions of Lashon Hara, and I'm very delighted that we have concluded that. Next time around, Hashem willing, we will be looking at the positive commandments. So thank you so much for joining me, and until next time, bye for now.